Our town was building an airport, and the demolition office staff went door-to-door measuring to negotiate compensation for the houses. But I waited for 3 months, and no one ever knocked on my door. Later, I found out that, on the planning map, my land had been deliberately drawn outside the red line. So I angrily went to the mayor, only to be told that this was just how it was planned. Seeing this, every single neighbor laughed at me. Now you're done for. You'll be stuck with that broken house for the rest of your life. I didn't say a word. Instead, I took out half a lifetime of savings, and even took out a loan to scrape together 10 million. Half a year later, the old house became a 10-story building with a sign Cloud Hotel hanging at the entrance. The sign that read "No entry for non-customers" became the most eye-catching scenery in the entire airport. Once the news of the airport construction spread, our place, called Anning Town, could no longer be peaceful. Suddenly, compensation and resettlement housing became the eternal topic among the townspeople for their new lives. White vans with demolition office printed on them shuttled back and forth on the town's dirt roads. Staff with tape measures and notebooks went door to door to measure, register, and negotiate. My home was a somewhat old 2-story building sitting at the far east end of the town. My parents passed away early. After that, I was the only one left at home. That day, the demolition office's car drove right past my door without stopping. I guess it must have started from the west end of the town to measure, and it just wasn't my turn yet. In the first week, my neighbor Aunt Lee negotiated a deal. It was said she got a large sum of money, grinning from ear to ear. Whenever she saw me, she would always ask loudly, "Ah Ting, your house should be soon, right?" Hearing this, I just smiled and nodded. In the first month, residents in the east end of the town also began to sign contracts one after another. Soon, the walls of the town were all painted with the red character demolish, except for my wall, which remained dull gray and very clean. I started to panic. Another 2 months passed, and most of the town's families had moved away. Seeing this, an ominous premonition began to spread in my heart. So I went to the town hall and found Mayor Zheng Daqian. He was busy making a phone call. Seeing me push the door open, he just impatiently raised his eyelids. "What is it?" I stepped forward and asked, "Mayor Zhen, I want to ask about the airport demolition. Why was our house left out?" Hearing this, slowly, Zheng Daqian put down the phone in his hand, took out a huge planning map from the drawer, and pointed at it. "See for yourself." I leaned in, and my heart sank heavily. On the planning map, the red demolition was like a sharp blade, slicing right along the edge of my courtyard wall, and my little building was like a forgotten island, left all alone outside the red line. I stared fixedly at that red line, my voice trembling a bit. What's going on here? Is there some mistake?" Zheng Daqian's tone was icy, without a trace of warmth. "There's no mistake. The plan is set this way, and there's nothing we can do." I couldn't help but press further. "But why is the whole town being demolished, yet our house was deliberately left out?" Zheng Daqian's voice suddenly grew louder, carrying an unquestionable bureaucratic authority. "I told you, this was decided by the experts up top. What can I do about it? I have a meeting. You should go back." After he finished speaking, he walked straight out of the office. As soon as I stepped into my house, I bumped into Aunt Lee, who was directing the movers, piece by piece, to load her furniture onto a truck. Seeing my devastated look, a hint of schadenfreude appeared on her face as she asked, "A Qing went to ask." Hearing this, I didn't say a word. Seeing me stay silent, he curled his lips. "I told you so. Your location is in a tough spot. They're building an airport, and your house is right on the edge, not really in the way. It wouldn't be cost-effective to demolish it and compensate you." Just then, another neighbor came over and mocked, "Well, isn't this great? From now on, you'll be the only family in town stuck with this broken house for the rest of your life. With the airport all around, the noise will annoy you to death." Aunt Lee laughed even harder and echoed, "Isn't that right? When we're all living in new apartments in the city, a Qing will still be smelling airplane exhaust." Their harsh laughter pierced my ears like needles, but I didn't argue with them. I just slowly raised my head and quietly looked at the little house I grew up in. Eventually, the moving trucks roared away. I stood alone on the empty street. I picked up my phone and made a call. "Hello, Suwang, it's me, a Qing." Suwan's gentle voice came through the phone. She asked, in confusion, "A Qing, what made you think to call me?" I pondered for a moment and said, "I want to consult you about a loan. Suwan is my childhood friend. She studied finance in college and now works as an account manager at a bank in the city." Suwan asked in surprise, "A loan? Aking, did something happen?" I answered in a calm tone, "Nothing's wrong. I just want to renovate my old house." Suwan was even more puzzled. "Impressed? Renovate? I heard your town is building an airport. Isn't everything getting demolished?" I briefly explained the situation. "My house isn't in the demolition zone." After a moment of silence on the phone, Suwan's voice carried a hint of anger. "Isn't that just bullying? How could the zoning map be so perfectly coincidental as to bypass your house entirely?" I said calmly, "It doesn't matter whether it's a coincidence anymore." Suwan asked, "Then what are you going to do? Are you just going to stick with that old house?" I looked out the window at the empty land and answered word by word, "No. I am going to tear it down and rebuild." Hearing this, Suwan fell silent. After a long time, she said, "Aking, are you sure about this? That's not a small amount of money." I answered firmly, "I've thought it through. How much do you need?" I have 200,000 inches savings left by my parents, and from working these past years, I'm thinking of taking out a 300,000 loan, making it 500,000 inches total. Hearing this number, Suwan gasped over the phone. 500,000. King, are you crazy? You're just rebuilding a personal residence. Do you really need that much money? What I am building isn't a normal house. I cast my gaze into the distance at the massive silhouette of the planned airport. In the future, that place will be bustling with people and endless business travelers, and my house is the closest to the airport and the only future private building. I asked Suwan, what do you think of the prospects of opening a hotel next to the new airport? Hearing this, Suwan was instantly stunned. She had always been smart and understood immediately. Realizing my intention, she exclaimed, a hotel? You want to open a hotel? King, you're taking way too big of a step. Do you know how to run a business? Do you have connections? The risk is too high. Facing her concerns, I asked her back, is it riskier to do this or to cling to an unwanted broken house, waiting for it to slowly rot away in the noise of airplanes? Which is scarier? Hearing my words, Suwan spoke with a face full of worry. But 300,000 is not a small amount, and the appraisal of your old house for a mortgage might not be enough, and you don't have proof of income either. Before she could finish, he interrupted her. I know, that's why I came to you. You're a professional, help me figure something out. I actually knew I was making things difficult for her, but I had no other path left to take, because this was the only opportunity to change my fate that I could grasp. Suwan let out a long sigh and said, Ching, you're still the same as when before. You don't speak, it's fine, but when you do, you scare people to death. How about this? Bring your property deed and documents to my office tomorrow, and it'll help you sort them out to see what channels we can use. I can't guarantee anything, but I'll try my best. Hearing this, I said gratefully, thank you. To lighten the mood, Suwan cracked a joke, don't thank me yet. Just save me a free presidential suite for life when your hotel opens. To this, I replied very seriously, okay, it's a deal. At the crack of dawn the next day, I took the first bus to the city, carrying all my hopes. As soon as we met, Suwan started scribbling on my documents, writing, made countless phone calls, and took me to several different departments. When the bank's reviewers saw my property deed hanging outside the red line, they all showed expressions of disbelief. In their eyes, granting a loan to an isolated island surrounded by the airport was absurdly risky. Because of this, I explained my business plan over and over again, but looking at this composed and even somewhat introverted young man, their eyes were full of doubt. There were several times during that period when I felt I couldn't hold on any longer. Fortunately, Suwan was always by my side, encouraging me. She not only helped me perfect the business plan and taught me hand in hand how to communicate with the bankers, but even used her own connections, inviting the branch leaders to dinner. A week later, just when I was almost in despair, Suwan called. On the other end of the line, her voice sounded exhausted, but mostly excited. Oh. Hearing this, I couldn't help but ask excitedly, really? She said excitedly, really. The 300,000 will be dispersed within a week. I made a pledge to our bank president, pitching your project as this year's key innovative pilot project to convince him. I held the phone for a long time, unable to speak. Tears welled up without warning. I said, gratefully, Suwan, thank you. Hearing this, Suwan replied with a smile, why are you being so polite with me? I immediately promised, I'll treat you to dinner as soon as I get the money. But Suwan smiled and said, skip the dinner, just hurry up and build your hotel. I am waiting to stay in the presidential suite. After hanging out to the window and looked out at the massive airport construction site that had already started. A week later, my phone received a text message. 300,000 yuan has been credited to your account. Looking at that long string of zeros, I couldn't help but take a deep breath. A full 500,000. This was not only my entire net worth, but also my entire stake. I told myself inwardly, King, you have no way back. I answered firmly, I can only win, I cannot lose. After getting the money, the very next day, I immediately contacted the best architectural design firm in the city and hired the most famous construction team in town. The construction team captain, surnamed Zhao, was an honest man. Seeing my old family house, he couldn't help but scratch his head. Qing, are you really tearing down this house to rebuild? Captain Zhao then asked, after tearing it down, what do you plan to build? Let me tell you, this area will be all airport in the future. If you build an ordinary house, it won't be comfortable to live in. I immediately took out a blueprint and said, Uncle Zhao, don't worry. As for the blueprint, I've already had someone design it. After Captain Zhao took the blueprint, his eyes widened at just a single glance. Goodness. 4 floors with a basement and a viewing terrace. You're building a little villa. Hearing this, I calmly replied, this building will be a hotel. Captain Zhao and the workers behind him were all stunned. Their expressions were exactly the same as the bank staff's back then. Captain Zhao couldn't help but ask doubtfully, Qing, you're not joking, are you? Opening a hotel in the middle of nowhere? I pointed to the dusty field in the distance. In the future, this won't be the middle of nowhere. You see, that will be the liveliest place in Anning Town. Captain Zhao fell silent, looking at my determined eyes. Then, he stared at the blueprint for a long time. He looked up at the location of my house again, and his eyes gradually changed. Then he slapped his thigh, suddenly realizing, I get it. Qing, you're really smart. This is called seizing the opportunity. Captain Zhao continued excitedly. Others might think this is a dead end, but if you really build the hotel, this will be a treasure land. People getting off the plane will be tired and exhausted. Who wouldn't want to find a place to rest right away? Wouldn't your hotel be the first choice they see when they open their eyes? I was a bit surprised. that Uncle Zhao could understand my idea so quickly. So I asked, Uncle Zhao, are you willing to take this job? Uncle Zhao immediately patted his chest loudly and readily agreed, I'll take it. Why wouldn't I take such an interesting job? It's hard to find even with a lantern. Don't worry, however, the blueprint is drawn. That's exactly how I'll build it for you. I promised to build it beautifully and sturdily. The day the bulldozer entered the yard, there was a lot of noise. Neighbors who hadn't moved away yet ran over to watch the commotion. When they saw the old house holding my childhood memories crash down under the iron arm of the bulldozer, they all couldn't help but gasp. This Fu Qing is really crazy. Such a perfectly good house, demolished just like that. What is he trying to do? I heard he brought a lot of money and wants to build a little villa here. Seeing this, Aunt Lin crossed her arms and sneered, building a little villa? I think he just has too much money and nowhere to spend it. Once it's built, living alone in such a big house, won't he be scared at night? The people nearby echoed, exactly. Without a single neighbor around, it'll be like living in a graveyard. I think he just cares too much about saving face and is asking for trouble. Will going against the plan end well for him? I turned a deaf ear to the various discussions and just stood in front of the messy ruins, watching the workers work. It wasn't long before the commotion here alerted the town mayor, Zheng Datian. He rolled down the window of his car and watched me from a distance. He probably didn't expect that not only did I not go crying and begging him, but I also caused such a huge commotion instead. Then Zheng Datian shouted at me through the car window, Fu Qing. I walked over and asked, is there something wrong? His tone carried the question, what are you doing? Renovating the house, I replied. But he continued to question, does a renovation require tearing down the entire house? You are rebuilding. Did you get the approval documents? I did. Zheng Datian didn't expect my paperwork to be so complete, and his face turned very ugly. He threw the documents back at me, his voice dripping with danger. I am warning you, don't mess around. The airport construction is a major project. If you dare to obstruct the construction or build illegally, don't blame me for being ruthless. I put the documents away, looked him straight in the eye, and said, don't worry, all my actions are within the limits of the law. I won't get in anyone's way, and please, don't let anyone get in mine. Zheng Datian had probably never seen me take such a tough stance. Finally, he gave a heavy snort, rolled up his window, and sped off. I knew he came today to warn me, and I was also here to test him. In the days that followed, I spent almost every day at the construction site. Soon, the building's framework stood on the empty land, growing taller day by day at a visible speed. In the first month, the foundation and basement were completed. Next, the main structure topped out. Finally, when the last truck of concrete was poured onto the fourth floor, Uncle Zhao excitedly set off a string of firecrackers. I stood on the newly formed rooftop, looking down at the land below from the rough-cast floor. Looking into the distance, the outline of the distant airport was also becoming clearer. My hotel and the future airport were engaged in a silent race, seeing which could present itself to the world faster. Just on this day, while I was discussing exterior wall materials with a designer at the site, several law enforcement vehicles roared over. The car doors opened, and out came over a dozen people in uniforms from different departments. Leading them was a middle-aged man, with Zheng Datian following behind him with a faint sneer on his face. The middle-aged man asked sternly, who is the person in charge here? I stepped forward and answered, I am. I saw him wave his ID, saying, we are the joint law enforcement team. We received reports stating there are serious illegal construction practices and massive safety hazards here, as well as environmental pollution. Hearing this, my heart sank, knowing trouble had arrived. Zheng Datian stood to the side without saying a word, but his gloating look said it all. Facing them, I replied calmly, all our procedures are completely legal, and the construction strictly follows national standards. Whether it's legal or not is not up to you. Search thoroughly, check every corner, and don't miss a thing. The people behind him immediately dispersed and flooded into my construction site. Some checked the fire safety, some measured the noise levels, and some took air samples. Some flipped through our construction logs. Uncle Zhao and the workers were dumbfounded. They wanted to step forward and argue, but I stopped them, letting them check. Because I clearly knew that this was Zheng Datian's revenge, and the more it was like this, the less we could panic. For the whole afternoon, my construction site was at a standstill. During this time, all kinds of nitpicking kept cropping up. The rebar spacing here seems wrong. Bring a ruler to measure it. Your dust control measures are inadequate. You'll be fined. Where's the cafeteria's health permit? I watched Zheng Datian occasionally whisper into the middle-aged man's ear, and then the two of them would cast malicious glances my way. But I maintained my silence throughout, simply using my phone to clearly record their every move and everyone's faces. By the time the sun was about to set, they had practically turned the entire site upside down. Finally, they gathered together and the middle-aged man concluded, after our detailed inspection this afternoon, your site basically meets the standards. He obviously said these words very reluctantly, and my heart finally relaxed, because I knew that from the moment I decided to build the hotel, I had taken every detail to the extreme. I hired the best supervision company and required every batch of materials to have a certificate of conformity. Every construction step strictly follows the blueprints. My goal is to build a flawless structure that no one can find fault with. Zheng Datian's face turned very ugly. Obviously, he didn't expect a young man in his 20s like me to do things so flawlessly. Then, the middle-aged man changed his tone, but considering your site is right next to the key airport project, the situation is special. To ensure nothing goes wrong, we've decided to order you to halt work for a week for a comprehensive self-inspection. Uncle Shao was the first who couldn't help but roar. On what grounds? We have absolutely no problems. Why should we halt work? The middle-aged man immediately hardened his face and said, "This is an order. If you refuse to comply, we will revoke your construction permit." However, looking at his greasy and arrogant face, I suddenly laughed. Mayor Zhen, I have the phone numbers of all the leaders from the Municipal Housing Bureau, the Fire Department, and the Environmental Protection Bureau right here. I also just sent the video I recorded to a friend of mine. He works for the provincial media. What do you think would happen if I told them exactly what happened this afternoon? I am just an ordinary citizen trying to protect my home, with no power or influence. I can only use this clumsy method to protect myself. Hearing this, his smile instantly froze on his face. He looked at me in astonishment, his eyes filled with disbelief. He probably never dreamed that this orphan, whom he saw as weak and easy to bully, actually had such a trump card hidden away. At this time, the middle-aged man also sensed something was off with the atmosphere and hurried over to ask Mayor Zheng, "Look at this." Seeing this, glared at me fiercely. Zheng Datian gritted his teeth and said, "Let them continue construction." After saying that, he got into the car without looking back and took that group of so-called law enforcement officers, fleeing in a panic. A burst of cheers instantly erupted on the construction site. Uncle Zhao and the workers all gave me a thumbs up and praised, "Ah, Qing, brilliant." Actually, only I knew that what I just said was half true and half false. I did record a video, but the friend in the media was completely made up. I was betting that Zheng Datian had a guilty conscience and wouldn't dare blow things out of proportion. I won the bet, but I also knew he definitely wouldn't let it go. So, looking at the city lights in the distance, I took out my phone. "Hello? Suwan," I said. "I think I've gotten myself into big trouble." Suwan waited until I finished telling her about the afternoon's events, and she stayed silent for a long time. So I asked tentatively, "Hello, Suwan, are you still listening?" Her voice sounded very tired, but also very calm. "I am Qing. Don't panic just yet," I replied. "I'm not panicking. I just want to know what I should do next." Suwan analyzed on the other end. "If you go head-to-head with him on his turf, you'll definitely be at a disadvantage. We need to change our approach." I immediately followed up. "What approach?" "The art of war says, in battle, engage directly but win by surprise. Right now, all your procedures are fully legal and compliant. That is your direct engagement. Zheng Datian finds fault with you but can't, so he can only use underhanded tactics. What we need to do is launch a surprise attack where he least expects it." I listened quietly to Suwan's analysis, which gradually cleared up my chaotic thoughts. So I asked, "What is this surprise attack?" Suwan replied word by word, "The Anning International Airport project itself, which is currently under construction." Hearing this, I was taken aback for a moment. She continued, "What is the core competitiveness of your future hotel? It's its unique geographical location and its zero distance to the airport. So from now on, you can't just limit your sights to Anning Town, this tiny piece of land. Much less should you keep staring at a jumping clown like Zheng Datian. You need to elevate your perspective to the same height as the airport project. You have to find a way to make the airport project team treat you as one of their own." Su Wang's words were like a bolt of lightning, instantly cutting through the fog before my eyes. I finally understood why Zheng Datian could bully me so recklessly. It was exactly because, in his eyes, I was just a weak, isolated individual. But if I could tie myself to the massive entity that is the airport, if Zheng Datian wanted to touch me, he'd have to weigh the consequences. But the question is, how do I tie myself to them? I said, feeling a bit troubled. The airport project is a key provincial and municipal initiative. The leaders in charge are very high-ranking. I can't even get close to them. Hearing this, Suwan chuckled. "Who said you needed to approach the top leaders directly? Qing? Have you forgotten what your advantage is?" I asked in confusion. "My advantage?" Suwan quickly explained. "Your construction site is currently the only place in Anning Town, besides the airport site, where a large number of workers are gathered. How many workers are at the airport site? There must be at least a few thousand. How do they solve their meals? How do they handle accommodation? What about their daily spending? As far as I know, to rush the construction schedule, they've implemented closed-off management. The workers' lives are actually very boring and highly inconvenient, and you are right next to them." As soon as I heard this, I understood and quickly asked, "You mean I should do business with them?" Su Wang's voice carried a hint of excitement. "It's not just about doing business. This is your best chance to tap into the airport project. You can use your current site to set up a small, temporary lifestyle service area, a convenience store, a food stall, or an open-air cinema. The investment isn't large, but it will immediately solve the urgent needs of the airport workers. What you're providing isn't just goods, it's convenience and care. When these thousands of workers appreciate what you've done, how do you think the airport's construction leaders will view you? They'll see you as a visionary and responsible partner, an ally who can help them stabilize the rear and relieve their worries. When that time comes, your hotel will no longer be an isolated building, but a supporting service center for the airport project." Would Zheng Datian still dare to cause you trouble? Would he dare to go against the entire airport project? Hearing this, I gripped the phone, trembling with excitement. For a long time, I couldn't speak. "Su Wan Yu, You really are a genius, Suwan said with a smile. It's not that I'm a genius. It was you who inspired me. Anyone who could think of building a hotel right next to an airport is definitely no fool. Suwan then reminded me, you need to do this as soon as possible. Before Zheng Datian makes his next move, we must deploy our surprise troops well. I quickly asked what I needed to do. Suwan suggested, go find Uncle Zhao. He has the workers and the skills. Setting up a temporary shed and opening a food stall is just a piece of cake for him. As for supplies, you can directly contact the wholesale market in the city. It'll give you a few numbers of my clients. They're reliable. The most important thing is the price. It must be fair, and the items must be clean and hygienic. What we want isn't huge profits, but to win their hearts. After hanging up the phone, I felt every cell in my figure become energized. The previous exhaustion and confusion were swept away, replaced by unprecedented fighting spirit and hope. I sought out Uncle Zhao overnight and shared my idea with him. After hearing it, Uncle Zhao slapped his thigh and praised, that's a great idea. I felt sorry for those brothers at the airport for a long time. Eating in the cafeteria every day, their mouths must be completely tasteless by now. Let's set up a food stall, get some beer and skewers, and they'll be absolutely thrilled. Uncle Zhao patted his chest, assuring me, Aching, don't worry, leave this to me. Tomorrow, it'll bring people to level the ground for you. I guarantee we'll be open for business within 3 days. Sure enough, Uncle Zhao's execution exceeded my expectations. 3 days later, a massive, rudimentary food court built with steel pipes and color steel tiles began to take shape. I gave it a name, calling it gas station, meaning both to fuel the workers and to fuel myself. Meanwhile, those making big money had been watching secretly. Seeing that we weren't building a hotel, but setting up tents instead, they were completely baffled. Soon, the gas station food stall opened for business. I held a small ceremony that day. I wrote a few big characters on red paper and posted them at the entrance for the opening. All food and drinks were half price for the first 3 days. I also had Uncle Zhao send a few workers to hand out flyers at the factory site entrance. In the evening, before the sky was fully dark, the off-work bell rang at the airport site. Hundreds or thousands of workers poured out of the gates like a tide. Most of them were covered in dust and looked exhausted. When they saw our place brightly lit and smelled the aroma of barbecue and stir-fry drifting in the air, they were stunned. Someone asked curiously, what is that place? Why is it so lively? Looks like a place to eat. What's it called? Gas station. Let's go take a look, someone suggested. The first customer was a very young-looking guy with a childish face. Boss, is it really half price here? I smiled and replied, really? He nodded. Then give me a portion of twice-cooked pork over rice and add 2 eggs. All right. I cooked it myself and as quickly as possible served him a steaming, generous portion of rice. The young man looked at the mountain of twice-cooked pork, his eyes glued to it. Soon, the second and third customers also arrived. Half an hour later, the entire gas station was full of people. They gathered in groups, ordering a few dishes and cases of beer. The suppressed emotions from a day on the site, under the catalysis of alcohol and good food, completely released. The originally empty and dead silent night was, by this vibrant and lively noise, completely ignited. Uncle Zhao and his workers were also at one of the tables, drinking until their faces turned red. This was the successful first step of my plan. In the following days, business at the gas station became increasingly booming. My gas station became, in the workers' doll construction site life, their only comfort and paradise. The workers who were eating all frowned when they saw this. Obviously, they could tell these few people were here to cause trouble. So I walked out from the back kitchen, took off my apron, and calmly asked, what would you like to eat? Zheng Qiang looked me up and down, his eyes full of aggression. You're the boss? We're not here to eat anything. We're here to collect protection money. He held up 5 fingers and said, if you want to do business in any town, you have to follow our rules, this amount every month. Unexpectedly, before I could speak, a burly, muscular man at the next table suddenly stood up. This man was a contractor from the airport site named Zhang, who came almost every day to eat at my place. Contractor Zhang then asked in a muffled, booming voice, what do you think you're doing? The workers who were eating all frowned when they saw this. Obviously, they could tell these few people were here to cause trouble. So I walked out from the back kitchen, took off my apron, and calmly asked, what would you like to eat? He looked me up and down, his eyes full of aggression. You're the boss? We're not here to eat anything. We're here to collect protection money. He held up 5 fingers and said, if you want to do business in any town, you have to follow our rules, this amount every month. Before I could speak, a burly man at the next table. This man was a contractor from the airport site, who came almost every day to eat at my place. Contractor Zhang then asked in a muffled, booming voice, what do you think you're doing running over here? To act wild? Zheng Qiang glanced at him disdainfully, out of the corner of his eye. Who the hell are you? This is adult business, kids shouldn't interrupt. Otherwise, we'll deal with you too. Foreman Zhang laughed after hearing this. He didn't say anything more, but instead picked up an empty beer bottle from the table and gave it a light squeeze. With a crack, the glass bottle shattered into countless pieces in his hand. Seeing this, Zheng Qiang and his lackeys immediately after, standing up from all directions, were dozens of equally muscular workers. Some of them were holding beer bottles, while others picked up stools. They didn't say a single word, but silently surrounded Zheng Qiang and his men. These workers came from all over the country and spent year-round working hard on construction sites. Although they weren't highly educated, They possessed the most simple and genuine brotherhood. Because I provided them with good and affordable meals, they were naturally willing to stand up for me. Zheng Qiang and his gang, who usually only bullied honest people in town, had never seen such a scene before. So Zheng Qiang shouted, trying to sound tough but actually terrified, What do you want? Let me tell you. My uncle is Cheng Daqian. Foreman Zhang spat disdainfully and said, Zheng Daqian is your uncle. Then who is your dad? The Jade Emperor? Get the hell out of here before we make a move. Zheng Qiang still wanted to say a few harsh words, but seeing more and more people gathering around, he completely chickened out. So he and his lackeys scrambled away, shouting, Let's go. A burst of laughter immediately erupted from the crowd. I looked at the pathetic retreating figures of Zheng Qiang and his men, then looked at the workers who spontaneously stood up for me, and a wave of warmth surged in my heart. So I walked over and gave Foreman Zhang a deep bow. Brother Zhang, and all the masters, thank you for today. Foreman Zhang immediately waved his hand heartily and said, What's there to thank? We just can't stand those scumbags. Boss Zhang, once we protect this place for you, whoever dares to cause you trouble again is crossing the thousands of us brothers. As soon as he said this, he received a unanimous response from everyone around. That's right. They're crossing the thousands of us brothers. At that moment, standing in the middle of the crowd, looking at the simple and sincere faces, I felt an indescribable emotion. While in the distance, Zheng Daqian watched his nephew being chased out in disgrace, trembling with anger. He then realized that things were gradually spiraling out of his control, and I, an orphan he had never taken seriously, had grown sturdy wings beyond his expectations. Meanwhile, not far away, the main structure of my 4-story building was already completed, waiting for the exterior decoration. Actually, I had already thought of its name long ago, which was the Cloud Hotel. I secretly resolved to make everyone who looked down on me look up to my existence from the ground. After Zheng Qiang and his men scurried away, the atmosphere at the gas station immediately reached an unprecedented peak. Foreman Zhang slapped a stack of cash on the table. Boss, if you look down on us, well, take the money back. We're not here to take advantage of you. We just think that you, a young man, dare to stand up to that gang. You've got guts. We respect you. I couldn't argue with them, so I finally accepted the money. Clearly in my heart that what I gained was far more valuable than this little bit of money. What I truly gained was people's hearts. The incident quickly reached the ears of the airport project command center. At first, they were very nervous. Thousands of workers gathering in an uncontrolled private venue seemed to them a huge safety hazard. It was said that the project department held an overnight meeting for this. At the meeting, someone proposed to directly shut down my gas station and force all workers back to the closed construction site. This proposal immediately faced fierce opposition from the person in charge of the construction party. If we treat him as a threat, it will only cause conflicts and pressure to accumulate. Sooner or later, something major will happen. After arguing for a long time, a compromise plan was proposed. Instead of treating him as a threat, why not turn him into a controllable partner? Soon, an SUV with the license plate of the Anning Airport Construction Command Center parked at the entrance of my site. A man in his 30s got out of the car and walked straight toward me, asking politely, Excuse me, are you Boss Fu Qing? I looked at him warily and replied, I am. He reached out his hand to me and introduced himself. Hello, my name is Qin Shou. I am the Deputy Director of the Logistics Department for the airport project. Can I have a quick word with you? I hesitated for a moment, but eventually sat down with him at an empty table at the gas station. I poured him a cup of herbal tea and asked, Director Qin, what can I do for you? Qin Shou smiled gently and said, Boss Fu, don't be nervous. I am not here to cause trouble today. I am here to discuss a business deal with you. I was stunned when I heard this and asked in return, Cooperation? Qin Shou pushed up his glasses and got straight to the point. Yes, our command center has reviewed the situation, and we all agree that your gas station has made a very positive contribution to the steady progress of our airport project. We are very grateful to you for providing such a great recreational space for the workers. Hearing this, I was caught a little off guard. I had originally thought they would come looking for me sooner or later to make trouble. Qin Shou then took a document out of his briefcase and said, We want to sign a formal cooperation agreement with you. Officially authorized by our command center, your gas station will become the No. 1 living service area for the Anning International Airport project. We will provide you with an official plaque. At the same time, we'll give you a monthly subsidy. We only have one requirement. My heart started beating faster, and I immediately asked, What requirement? Looked at me with eyes full of sincerity and said, Ensure food safety and maintain stable prices so the workers can eat with peace of mind and be happy. Boss Fu, we know your current pricing leaves you with almost no profit. We are giving you this subsidy because we hope you can keep doing this in the long run. You help us stabilize the rear so we can focus on construction at the front lines with peace of mind. Looking at the agreement on the table and the word cooperation written on it, my eyes suddenly teared up. Su Wan's strategy, that brilliant move to win by surprise, had ultimately been realized in a way I hadn't expected at all. Not only did I become an ally of the airport project, I even became one of their officially certified insiders. I answered immediately, I agree. I picked up a pen and signed my name on the agreement. Qin Shou happily put the agreement away and said, Boss Su, happy cooperating. If you need our help with anything in the future, or if anyone comes to harass you, you can call me anytime. After seeing Qin show off, I immediately called Suwan and said excitedly, "Hello? Suwan, we succeeded." Suwan laughed on the other end of the phone and said, "I knew it all along. Qin, remember, when you can provide people with value they cannot refuse, you become a partner everyone wants to win over, instead of an ant they can trample on at will. From now on, your battlefield has leveled up." Sure enough, the next day, a brand new blue plaque was hung in the most prominent spot at the gas station, with 2 lines of large characters. Anning International Airport Project, designated Anning Airport Construction Command Center, Logistics Department Supervising. This plaque was like the command flag of an ancient general. Once it was hung up, the entire gas station's aura changed. As a result, the workers stood a little taller when they looked at it. Here, spending money was no longer just about eating and drinking, but an officially recognized perk. At this point, my identity transformed from a controversial self-employed worker to a legitimate red hat merchant. I could clearly feel that Zheng Daqian's omnipresent eyes restrained themselves quite a bit after seeing this plaque. At least for the following week, there were no more incidents of harassment, and both the construction site and the gas station enjoyed a rare period of peace. But I knew this was just the calm before the storm. After all, someone like Zheng Daqian would never just let it go. Sure enough, a week later, the trouble arrived quietly in an unexpected way. That morning, Old Li, the truck driver who delivers my pork, came to me with a bitter face. "Boss Fu, I am sorry. I might not be able to deliver the meat today." My heart skipped a beat. I hurried down. "What happened, Master Li?" Old Li lit a cigarette and took a deep drag. He let out a heavy sigh and said, "Don't even ask. I went to pick up goods early this morning and was stopped halfway by the town's transport administration. They said I broke the rules, so they're fining me and impounding my truck. My truck wasn't even carrying half its rated load. I argued with them, and they just demanded a 10,000 yuan fine, or else they'll impound the truck for a month." Hearing this, my heart instantly sank. This was definitely no coincidence. It was clearly Zheng Daqian's new trick. He didn't dare come at me directly anymore, so he started targeting my upstream supply chain. Old Li then added helplessly, "It wasn't just me. This morning, several trucks delivering vegetables, grain, and oil to our area were all stopped at different intersections. Their excuses varied, like failing emissions tests. Anyway, it was all sorts of fines and impoundments. Now, none of the delivery drivers in town dare to come your way anymore. They're all scared." What a ruthless move. Cutting off my resources at the source. You have to understand, the gas station consumes a massive amount of ingredients daily. Once the supply chain breaks, we'd have to shut down within 2 days. By noon, the impact of the ingredient shortage began to show. Several dishes the workers wanted couldn't be made due to lacking ingredients. Although they all expressed understanding, I could see the disappointment in their eyes. Seeing this, I was extremely anxious, so I immediately called Director Qin and explained the situation. Qin was furious. "This is outrageous. This is pure nonsense. They're sabotaging the normal operation of the airport project." He promised to negotiate with the town officials immediately. However, an hour later, he called back and said helplessly, "Fu Qing, I spoke to them, and they gave me nice promises, saying they'd correct it immediately. But their subordinates are just feigning compliance, still setting up checkpoints everywhere. This is local protectionism. It's their internal chain of interests. We're the command center and have no direct jurisdiction over local administration. These people are just playing rogue and stalling us." It seemed relying on others was hopeless. I had to carve out a path myself. I immediately dialed Su Wan's number. "Su Wan, do me a favor. Do you still have the contacts for the city's wholesale market?" Su Wan immediately asked. "Yes, what happened?" "What's wrong?" I then explained Zheng Daqian's tactics and my predicament briefly to her. Su Wan stayed silent for a few seconds on the other end, then commented, "That's ruthless. He's pushing you into a corner. What are you going to do?" Qing, sourcing goods from the city is quite far. The cost will be much higher. Plus, you don't have a vehicle. Renting or buying a second-hand one will add to the cost. The subsidy Director Qin gave me can be used for this. The most crucial thing is that I want control over my supply. I don't want to be choked off by anyone again." Su Wan's voice revealed a hint of approval. Hearing my decisive answer, she said, "So bold. That's the spirit. As for the vehicle, I have a client in the second-hand car business. I'll have him find you a sturdy and durable small truck. First, I'll front the money for you. I'll cover it from my end. Don't worry about the wholesale market either. I'll put in a word for you, so they save the best goods for you at the most favorable wholesale prices. Qing, just remember, Anning Town is just a small pond. Zheng Daqian is a big fish in a small pond, but once he leaves this pond, he is nothing. What you need to do is plant your roots in the rivers and oceans outside the pond." Su Wan's words enlightened me. I was always thinking about how to fight him in Anning Town, but forgot that I could just bypass him and go to a broader platform. 2 days later, an old blue pickup truck parked at the entrance of my construction site. Su Wan drove the truck over herself and handed the keys to me. "Driver's license? You have one, right?" I replied confidently. "Yes, got it in college, but I haven't driven in a long time." Su Wan comforted me. "It's fine. You can drive this truck however you want." She casually opened the back and smiled at the fully loaded truck bed, saying, "This is the first batch of goods I picked up for you from the wholesale market on my way. Inspect them." At this moment, looking at this truck full of fresh ingredients and looking at the travel-worn Su Wan, my nose tingled. All right. Su Wan hurriedly patted my shoulder. "All right, stop being so sentimental. Hurry up and unload the goods. The workers are still waiting to eat. When your hotel opens, just reserve a few presidential suites for me. That night, the dishes at the gas station were more abundant than ever before. When the workers learned that I drove the truck myself to bring these back from the city, dozens of kilometers away, everyone was shocked. Foreman Zhang held a bowl of liquor, walked up to me, his face flushed with excitement. Boss Fu, I haven't admired many people in my life, but you are one of them. For your dedication, we will follow you. This gas station is the home for all of us. If anyone dares to touch our home, we will fight them to the end. Immediately, hundreds of workers shouted in unison, our home. If anyone dares to touch our home, we will fight them to the end. At this moment, I knew Zheng Daqian's drastic sabotage plan had completely failed. Not only did he fail to crush me, he ended up binding me and these simple, honest workers closely together. Since having my own truck and an independent supply chain, my gas station firmly held its ground. I poured all my energy back into the hotel's construction. The designer Su Wan found for me was indeed highly skilled. He designed a modern and minimalist style for my hotel. Against the backdrop of the messy surrounding construction site, it looked like a piece of art dropped from a future city onto this land. At the same time, on Director Chin's advice, I opened a small supermarket selling cigarettes, snacks, and daily necessities. Additionally, I bought a few washing machines to provide laundry services. At this point, my gas station had become a fully functional micro-community, perfectly solving all the worries of the airport workers. Just like that, my reputation spread throughout the entire airport project by word of mouth from the workers. Everyone knew that next to the construction site, there was a young boss named Fu Xing. One day, while I was doing the accounts at the gas station, Director Chin suddenly walked in leading a few people. Leading the group was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was accompanied by two young people holding notebooks and cameras. Director Chin immediately introduced them enthusiastically. Boss Fu, let me introduce you. This is the project and development department manager from China, Southern Airlines headquarters, Manager Chen Mo. He's here for the preliminary inspection of the airport's future flight routes. Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. I immediately stood up and reached out my hand. Manager Chen, hello? Chen Mo shook my hand with a commercial smile on his face. Boss Fu, I've heard a lot about you. Director Qin praised you a lot along the way. He quickly replied modestly. Director Qin flatters me. Chen Mo then got straight to the point. We just took a walk around the airport construction site, and then we saw your highly well-designed building. Director Qing mentioned that this is a soon-to-open hotel. Are you the boss? I answered affirmatively, yes. Hearing this, Chen Mo immediately made a request. Could you take us for a tour? I immediately replied, of course. So I put down the ledger in my hand and led them towards my hotel. Chen Mo asked me many questions, and my answers were calm and clear. When I led them into the hotel lobby, which was still under renovation, all of them were shocked. Standing here, you could clearly see the distant construction site where tower cranes were busy working. It was not hard to imagine that in the near future, you would see silver planes taking off and landing here. The visual impact was unparalleled. Chen Mo couldn't help but sincerely praise, amazing, Boss Fu, you have great vision. While everyone else was staring at the demolition compensation, you saw the value of the future. At the same time, the assistant behind him kept taking photos and notes. Then we went to the viewing terrace on the roof. Standing here, you had a panoramic view of the entire airport construction site. Chen Mo looked into the distance and spoke slowly. Our airline's crew members need to rest in the landing city after every direct flight mission. We have very high requirements for our contracted hotels. Security, privacy, and convenience are all indispensable. Your hotel has a unique geographical advantage. It's even closer to the airport than our planned staff dormitory. He then turned his head to look at me, his eyes shining brightly. Boss Fu, after your hotel opens, would you be interested in becoming the designated hotel for Southern Airlines crew at Anning Airport? Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. You know, signing a long-term cooperation agreement with an airline meant that even before my hotel opened, I would have the most stable and highest quality source of customers. This was undoubtedly something I dreamed of. So I suppressed my inner excitement and replied, of course I am interested. Hearing this, Chen Mo nodded in satisfaction. Very good. Once your hotel is officially completed, we will send a professional team over for an assessment. If everything is fine, we can sign a strategic cooperation agreement. Then he took a business card out of his pocket and handed it to me. Keep in touch. After seeing off Chen Mo and his group, I stood alone on the rooftop, enjoying the breeze, feeling like everything was a dream. Just as I was about to go downstairs, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a car parked at the end of the dirt road in the distance. It was Zheng Daqian's car. He was sitting in the car with another person next to him. At this moment, Zheng Daqian seemed to be pointing at my hotel and saying something to him. So I calmly went downstairs and sent a message to Su Wan. Help me look into someone. Then I used my phone from the rooftop to zoom in and took a blurry side profile picture of the two men, adding, the guy in the suit sitting next to Zheng Daqian. I want all his information. The more detailed, the better. Su Wan replied, almost instantly. Received. Are you in trouble? I replied, it might be real trouble. After putting down the phone, I walked to the entrance of the construction site and said to Uncle Zhao, Uncle Zhao, do me a favor. Uncle Zhao immediately replied, Aking, just tell me. I explained. I need someone to make a sign with the best wood, hand-carved. Uncle Zhao asked curiously, what should be written on it? So I took out a pen and paper and carefully wrote down a few words. No entry for non-consuming guests. Uncle Zhao stared at the words for a moment, then smiled and said, understood. You're trying to set rules for certain people. I'll go find the best carpenter in town right now and make sure it's done for you. Perfectly clear. 3 days later, a sign carved out of a solid piece of rosewood was erected in the most conspicuous position at the entrance of my hotel construction site, and the appearance of this sign immediately caught everyone's attention. Those workers who came to the gas station to eat would take a few glances as they passed by and then smile knowingly. Obviously, they both knew who this sign was meant for. Of course, Zheng Daqian saw it too, and he naturally knew that non-consuming guests referred to him and the VIP he brought along. I was using the most direct way to tell them, my turf does not welcome your prying eyes. That night, Suwan called me. Qing, I found out. That man's name is Bo Chang. He's the boss of Huayu Capital in the city. What he excels at most is finding those old projects that have weaknesses or disputes. Then, using various methods, he forcefully takes them over and acquires massive profits by reselling them. Over the years, quite a few companies have been ruined by him. Every word Suwan said made my heart sink a little deeper. I asked her in confusion, why would he be mixed up with Zheng Daqian? Suwan immediately replied, I checked the business registration. An investment firm under Ji Bochen's name partnered with Zheng Daqian's younger brother just last month to register a new company called Anning Airport.co Limited. Suwan then asked, the company's registered address? Guess where it is? Hearing this, my mind buzzed as I replied, it's right here at my house. Suwan's voice was cold. Exactly. It's your piece of land. Everything made sense now. Zheng Daqian never intended to leave me in peace from the start. He drew the red line around my property just to keep this piece of land for himself. He knew this land would appreciate in value in the future, so he had his brother partner with Ji Bochang, wanting to turn this land into their own possession. Building a hotel here blocked their way to making money, so they had to use every possible method to drive me away and turn my hotel into theirs. Previously, those underhanded little tricks were just appetizers. Now, the real capital predator, Zhi Bochang, had personally entered the game. I anxiously asked, Suwan, what will they do? Suwan then replied, Ji Bochang's tactics usually consist of 3 steps. First, public smearing. They will ruin your reputation, make everyone think you are a liability, and cause your partners to waver. Second, legal action. They will sue you on various fabricated charges to drain your energy and funds. Third, cutting off the source. They will target your capital chain and your team, causing an internal collapse. When they've tortured you enough, he will appear as a savior, offering an insultingly low price you can't refuse to buy everything you own. Listening to Suwan's analysis, I remained silent for a long time before slowly speaking up. I understand. Since he wants to play, I'll play with him to the very end. Hearing this, Suwan was a bit worried. I said to Suwan, keep an eye on Ji Bochang and all the financial transactions and movements of that new company for me. I need to know his every move. Also, it'll expedite the partnership with China Southern Airlines. I need a powerful official ally to back me up, and my hotel must be completed and opened as fast as possible. As long as I start generating cash flow, I can drag this out with him. I finished speaking in one breath. After hearing my plan, Suwan let out a long sigh of relief. King, you've really grown up. I looked at the no entry sign outside the window. I was forced into this. This world doesn't believe in tears. If you want to survive, you must become a tougher warrior than your enemies. Ji Bochang's attack came faster and fiercer than I expected. Overnight, several local forums in Anning Town and some city self-media accounts were flooded with harshly worded articles. The titles were sensational. The illegal construction tumor next to the airport who gave him the privilege to defy city planning? Where did the young man's massive 500,000 fund come from? Uncovering the capital suspicion behind Cloud Hotel? Security alert. A hotel less than 100 meters from the runway could become a huge hazard for future flights. In the articles, I was portrayed as an insatiably greedy, deeply connected, and reckless nail house owner who ignored public safety for money. They also hinted that my loan was obtained illegally, and even insinuated that I had improper exchanges of interests with the bank and the airport. Suwan and young Master Qin were both indirectly dragged into this. These articles acted like a virus, spreading rapidly across the internet. The people in town were already extremely jealous and curious about me, and now they were talking even more. They said, how could a young guy like him be so capable? He must have someone backing him up. Now look, things have blown up. Let's see how he cleans this up. Aunt Lee was even more delighted at my misfortune. She forwarded these articles in local WeChat groups, adding her own flair, saying this was a case of lacking the virtue to match the position, which always brings disaster. The negative public opinion soon reached the airport project. Director Qin from the command center called me immediately, sounding extremely anxious. Fu Qing, have you seen those articles online? The command center leaders are taking this very seriously, and the pressure is huge. I calmly replied, I've seen them, Director Qing. Don't worry about this, I'll handle it. The innocent will stay innocent. After hanging up, before I could even catch my breath, Uncle Zhao came looking for me with an angry look on his face. Qing, this is too much. They are bullying us. I asked in confusion, what's wrong? Uncle Zhao? Uncle Zhao then angrily said a company from the city called Hongfa Construction just sent someone here. They came to our site and specifically asked to poach the experienced workers under me, offering double the salary and promising to pay their social security and housing fund. A few of the young guys are already tempted. My heart sank. I found the young workers who were tempted. I didn't scold them, but just looked at them calmly and said, people always strive for better things, so I understand if you want to go. I won't stop you. As for your wages, I'll pay you every single penny. But for those who leave, the doors of Yunduan Hotel will never open for you again. After saying that, I turned and walked away. The young men stood there looking at each other, and in the end, no one left. They might not be the most loyal, but they aren't stupid. They could tell who was truly building a business and who was just here to sabotage. Uncle Zhao's team was stabilized, but new troubles followed closely behind. The very next day, I received a court summons. Environmental technology company I had never heard of sued me, claiming that construction noise and light pollution were severely disrupting their precision instruments and demanding 1 million yuan in compensation. They also demanded that my hotel immediately halt construction. But the registered address of this company was in a wasteland a few kilometers away, where not a single soul could be seen. This was a blatantly malicious lawsuit aimed at stalling me and draining my funds. I had no choice but to spend money, to hire a lawyer to prepare for the defense. My funds were already stretched to the limit, and now there was another huge expense. I could only sleep for 3 or 4 hours every day. During the day, I had to handle matters at the construction site, soothe the workers' emotions, and hold meetings with the lawyer. At night, I had to drive to the city myself to restock goods and also manage the business at the gas station. The immense pressure almost made me suffocate. For the first time, I began to doubt myself. My opponent was a financial tycoon with massive capital and a professional team, while I only had a small team and solitary courage. Just then, Su Wan called. Ah Qing, don't be afraid. I know everything. Ji Bochang's 3 tricks are his usual tactics, and many people have fallen to them. But you won't. Go outside the gas station and take a look now. Hearing this, I wiped my tears and walked to the door in confusion. In the empty space outside the gas station, dozens of workers who had just gotten off work were holding their phones and gathering together. Under those articles that smeared me, they were leaving comments one by one. Bullshit. Boss Fuss meals are the cheapest and cleanest in the whole Anning town. I work at the Yunduan Hotel construction site, and the safety standards here are much better than many large real estate projects in the city. Who's spreading rumors? I am going to rip their mouth off. If this hotel violates regulations, then there's no legal building in the world. Boss Fu has all the necessary permits. Support Boss Fu to take down those bastards stabbing people in the back. Their words were very vulgar, even containing swear words. They only knew who treated them well, and they would stand up for them. Looking at them, my tears welled up once again. This time, it was because I was moved. I suddenly understood. Ji Bochang has money, has a team, and has the means, but I have something he could never possibly have. I have the support of the people. I sniffled and stepped forward. Brother Zhang, and all of you, Brother Zhang, saw me and grinned. Thank you. Thank us. We just can't stand seeing those bastards bully a good person. Another worker chimed in. Boss Fu, don't be afraid. Thousands of us brothers stand with you. If they dare touch a single hair on your head, we'll level their whole nest. Looking at their simple but resolute faces, the confusion and fear in my heart were completely swept away. I stood up straight again and called Manager Chen Mo of China Southern Airlines. Manager Chen, hello? This is Fu Qing. Regarding those rumors about me online, I am sure you've seen them, but I don't want to make pointless explanations. I just want to invite you and your evaluation team to inspect my hotel anytime. Also, I want to make a bet with you. If the evaluation passes, I hope we can sign the contract immediately. In return, for the first 3 years of cooperation fees, it'll give you a 20% discount. If the evaluation fails, it'll pay for all your team's travel expenses. I am gambling my reputation and my future. This call from me greatly surprised Chen Mo. Boss Fu, you have a lot of guts. I admire people with guts. Tell you what, I will bring our most professional team over in 3 days. I hope you won't disappoint me. It's a deal, I replied. After hanging up, I found Uncle Zhao. Uncle Zhao, we must get the hotel ready to host the evaluation team within 3 days. I threw all my remaining funds into this final sprint, making sure the hotel's core areas, the parts that best reflect its value, would be presented perfectly, giving up on time-consuming fine decorations. I told everyone, we are not renovating, we are fighting. The workers' morale was completely ignited by me. Foreman Zhang and his men even volunteered, skipping their rest after work, to come straight to my site to help. The airport site, with thousands of people, and my hotel site, formed a magical synergy. During the day, they sweated profusely at the airport. At night, they set up temporary searchlights here and continued working through the night. The entire site was brightly lit 24 hours a day, with machines roaring constantly. This desperate, all-out effort shocked everyone. When the evaluation team, led by Chen Mo, finally arrived at my hotel, they were all stunned by the sight before them. In just a few days of not seeing it, this building had taken on a completely new look, and the core area already showed the prototype of a 5-star hotel. I led them up to the top floor viewing terrace, which was already furnished with comfortable outdoor tables and chairs. I invited them. Manager Chen, please have a seat. I brewed a cup of hot tea for each of them and introduced. In the future, this will be our Cloud Hotel's airport viewing, executive lounge. Every China Southern Airlines crew member staying at our hotel can enjoy the top-tier view and the most relaxing environment here. Chen Mo held his teacup, looking at the massive terminal building in the distance, his eyes filled with shock. The team members behind him were holding various instruments, conducting rigorous tests in every corner of the hotel. My heart was in my throat the whole time. An hour later, after all tests were completed, a bespectacled technical director walked up to Chen Mo and handed him a freshly printed report. Chen Mo took the report and read it carefully. He read it very slowly, and my palms were sweating profusely. Finally, he put down the report. Looking at me sharply, he said, "Boss Fu, I must admit you've created a miracle. Whether it's the construction quality or the design concept, your hotel has exceeded our expectations. Especially the soundproofing, which keeps indoor noise under 40 decibels, is quite remarkable." Hearing this, my mind was finally put at ease. For this soundproofing effect, we gave up on those time-consuming and labor-intensive fine decorations. Looking at it now, it was all worth it. Then Chen Mo suddenly changed the subject. "However, your hotel is currently only half finished, and many supporting facilities are not yet complete. This does not meet our cooperation commitment." I took a deep breath and was about to state my backup plan, when Chen Mo smiled instead. "But I personally am very optimistic about your future, so I've decided to take a gamble on you too." After speaking, he took out 2 documents from his briefcase. One was a hotel cooperation letter of intent, and the other was a private angel investment agreement. Chen Mo explained, "This letter of intent, we can sign first. It represents China Southern Airlines' official stance and can help you resist a lot of external pressure." After saying that, he pushed the second document in front of me. "As for this investment agreement, it's a 1 million personal investment in your hotel under my wife's name to help you tide over the current difficulties and get the hotel fully completed. I don't want your shares, just consider it a loan. Once your hotel is profitable, just pay me back with principal and interest." I never dreamed he would support me in this way. I asked with a trembling voice, "Why?" Chen Mo took a sip of tea, looked far away, and said, "Because I see the shadow of my younger self in you, having nothing, yet daring to declare war against the whole world. There aren't many young people like that anymore, and I don't want to see your dream stifled in the cradle by dirty capital." My eyes grew hot. I stood up and bowed deeply to him, saying, "Manager Chen, thank you. I, Fu Qing, hereby swear I will never betray your trust." That afternoon, on the rooftop of my half-finished hotel, I signed that $1 million agreement. Just at the moment I signed, I received a message from Su Wan. Jibo Chang has started a hostile takeover of our bank's shares on the secondary market. He wants to force me to step down. I looked at the message, then looked up into the distance. I knew the real decisive battle had begun. Manager Chen Mo's 1 million personal investment was like a shot in the arm for my nearly dried up capital chain. But Su Wan's text message was like a basin of ice water poured over my head. I knew that Su Wan had become a target, entirely because of me. I dialed Su Wan's number. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. Su Wan said with an unusually exhausted voice, "King, I am in a meeting right now, keep it short." I hurriedly asked, "How are you?" "Is he?" Su Wan interrupted and feigned a relaxed tone, saying, "It's fine, just normal games in the business world. You don't need to worry. I can handle it. As long as you get your hotel built, that's the biggest support you can give me. People like Jibo Chang value profit above all else. As long as your project succeeds, it proves my initial judgment. That's right? Then those old geezers on the bank's board will have nothing to say." I knew she was comforting me. Jibo Chang was using his massive capital to pressure the whole bank with the goal of forcing them to sacrifice Su Wan, the approver. I spoke softly into the phone. "Su Wan, I am sorry." Over the phone, she was silent for a moment, then comforted me. "We are friends. I helped you not as an investment, but out of trust. Don't overthink it. Follow the plan. Remember, if you win, we will all win. I'll hang up now." "Well, talk later." I hung up the phone. These words of trust weighed on my heart like a heavy boulder. I couldn't afford to lose, not just because of my hotel, but also because of Su Wang's future and Chen Mo's trust. I returned to the construction site. Uncle Zhao and the workers were waiting anxiously. When they saw me, they all asked with concern, "What did the people from China Southern Airlines say?" I put away all my emotions, put a smile on my face, and said, "They are very satisfied. They will sign a letter of intent with us." Cheers erupted across the site. The hard work over the past few days had finally paid off. I looked at the simple, honest smiles on their faces. I announced on the spot that all workers who rushed the job would get double pay this month, and the airport workers who helped would each receive a 1,000 yuan bonus. The next day, Chen Mo transferred the 1 million yuan investment into my account. At the same time, China Southern Airlines legal department also sent a scanned copy of the stamped letter of intent. With China Southern Airlines official endorsement, the rumors about my mysterious background and illegal construction collapsed on their own. I then called Qinshou. "Director Qing, I want to hold a press conference in the name of the airport command center." Qinshou froze for a moment and asked, "What is the press conference about?" I quickly explained the official unveiling of the Cloud Hotel and the prospect of our tripartite cooperation with the airport and China Southern Airlines. I want to invite reporters from all major media outlets in the city and even the province. In front of everyone, It'll clarify the whole story of building the hotel and make the letter of intent with China Southern Airlines and all legal procedures known to the public. Qin Shou immediately understood my intention. You want to use their momentum against them and completely turn the tide of public opinion. I replied, word by word, yes, I don't want to play hide and seek with them anymore. I am going to put all my cards on the table. Since they want to make me famous, then it'll become thoroughly famous. Qin Shou pondered for a long time on the other end of the phone. This was also a risk for him. If anything went wrong at the press conference, he would also have to bear the responsibility. Finally, he made up his mind and said, all right, I support you. The airport project needs a partner like you, and the development of Anning Town also needs this kind of vitality. It'll contact the reporters. As well, use the conference room at the airport command center. It's settled for 3 days from now. Fuqing, let's fight a beautiful turnaround battle together. The 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Qin Shou had a wide network of connections. He invited almost all the prominent media in the city. At 10 a.m., the press conference officially began. I took a deep breath and walked to the podium. Friends from the media, distinguished guests, hello everyone. My name is Fuqing, and I am the founder of the Cloud Hotel. I know there have been many rumors online recently about me and this hotel. Some say I am mysterious, some say the source of my funds is unknown, and some even call this building a cancer next to the airport. Standing here today, I just want to tell everyone that none of this is true. I am just an ordinary boy from Anning Town. My parents passed away early, leaving me this old house. When the whole town was being demolished, and only my house was left outside the red line, I didn't cry or complain. I just felt that fate kept me here, for a reason. I took out all the inheritance my parents left behind and took out a 300,000 yuan loan from the bank to scrape together 500,000 yuan as startup capital, and I tore it down to rebuild. I wanted to turn it from an abandoned old house into a hotel that could serve the new airport. I named it Cloud, hoping it could be like an airplane, heading towards the clouds and a higher future, soaring. My voice was very calm. I wasn't deliberately being sensational, but simply stating a fact. The story of how a young man relied on his own strength to protect his home and pursue his dreams. The venue gradually quieted down. Many reporters put down their pens and listened quietly as I continued. Every penny of my funding is completely clean. The bank friend who provided me with a loan is now suffering a false accusation because of his professionalism and integrity. I looked at Suwan in the audience. She was sitting in an inconspicuous corner, her eyes slightly red. Every step of my construction was legal and compliant. Director Qin from the airport headquarters, who supervised the project's quality, nodded at me. His eyes were full of encouragement. My future is definitely not a tumor, because I had already reached a preliminary strategic partnership with manager Chen Mo of China Southern Airlines. I turned and pointed to the backdrop behind me and the letter of intent hanging on the wall. In the future, this place will become the warmest haven for China Southern Airlines crew members. As soon as I finished speaking, the whole venue was instantly in an uproar. An official partnership with China Southern Airlines, this was absolutely the biggest news of the day. All the doubts seemed pale and powerless in the face of this document. I pointed to Uncle Zhao and Foreman Zhang in the front row and responded candidly. I may not have much background or backing, but I have a heart that wants to do something for my hometown. What supports me is this land behind me that I love. The leaders at all levels who support me, the partners who trust me, and the workers who bleed and sweat with me. Then, the press conference entered the Q&A session. A male reporter stood up and asked sharply, Mr. Fu, you mentioned earlier that your bank friend was suppressed because of you. As far as I know, recently, a company called Huayu Capital is conducting a hostile takeover of your friend's bank. And behind the several self-media accounts smearing you online, there is also the shadow of Huayu Capital. Do you think this is a malicious commercial act targeted at you? The eyes of the entire audience were focused on me. I stayed silent for a moment, then answered clearly, there are two kinds of people in this world. One kind sees value and will find ways to create and protect it. The other kind sees value and only thinks of plundering and destroying it, and then taking it for themselves. We welcome all creators, but we will forever close our doors to those greedy plunderers. I believe that under the sun, all schemes and tricks will eventually have nowhere to hide. As soon as I finished speaking, thunderous applause erupted throughout the venue. That afternoon, news about the Cloud Hotel swept the front pages of all the city's media. My image changed from a controversial nail house owner into a legendary entrepreneurial pioneer, an independent, tough, and outstanding young man who dared to say no to unfair fate and capital. But on the second day after the press conference ended, trouble arrived. In the morning, Secretary Zhao rushed over to me and shouted, Qing, this is bad. The hotel's water supply is cut off. My heart sank, and I asked, what happened? Didn't we pay the water bill on time? Uncle Zhao immediately replied, we did, but the town's water plant said the main pipeline in our area needs to be shut down for a week for repairs. This was the local bully's most commonly used dirty trick. Without water, the final renovation work of the hotel would all have to stop. What's worse, our business couldn't operate normally anymore. I immediately thought of Uncle Qin, but before I had the chance to call him, an unexpected person came to my door. He introduced himself. My name is Wang Weiguo. I used to be the chairman of Hongtu Group. Hongtu Group. The name sounded a bit familiar to me. It seemed to be a once very famous local real estate company in the city. but I heard a few years ago that, due to a broken capital chain, it went bankrupt overnight. Wang Weiguo looked at me with complex eyes. I am here today to tell you something. The boss of Huayu Capital, who pushed you into a corner, Zhi Bochang, is the same person who ruined me using the same methods. I immediately realized that the man in front of me was not an enemy, but my natural ally. I asked curiously, Chairman Wang, what exactly happened? Wang Weiguo then fell into painful memories. I was developing a large commercial complex, just like you are now, and invested my entire net worth into it. But just when the project was about to be completed, Ji Bochang appeared. Then, he appeared like a savior, taking it for less than 30% of the price. All my shares, and that almost completed project. I went from being a billionaire to a penniless man drowning in debt. Wang Weiguo's story and everything I am experiencing right now are so strikingly similar, only his ending was far more tragic. Wang Weiguo took a thick stack of documents from his briefcase and said, I've been collecting evidence of his crimes all these years. Ji Bochang is a ruthless man, but overconfident. Many of his shady deals have left traces. They were all conducted through an overseas shell company. He thought no one would ever find out, but the person who operated it for him over the years is actually an insider I planted next to him. Here is the evidence of his tax evasion, evidence of his illegal asset transfers, and evidence of his bribery. Any single one of these is enough to doom him. I looked at that stack of documents, my breathing growing heavy. These weren't just documents. This was clearly a hunting rifle poised to kill Ji Bochang. I asked eagerly, Chairman Wang, why didn't you report him since you have all this? Wang Weiguo smiled bitterly and shook his head, replying, it's no use. I've tried, but Ji Bochang's connections are too strong. A bankrupt old man like me can't make any waves at all. These materials just disappear into the void when submitted. After saying this, he looked up, his eyes burning as he looked at me and said, but you're different. You have the airport project and China's Southern Airlines backing you. You have the attention they lack and an influence they cannot ignore. In my hands, this is just a piece of scrap iron, but in your hands, it might just sever the dragon's head. My hands trembled slightly as I took the heavy stack of documents. I understood. Wang Weiguo didn't come to ask for my help. He came to entrust his hope for revenge to me. Just then, Qin Shou called me. On the phone, he said, I already know about the water shutoff. I just informed the city leaders, and the mayor is furious. He is personally looking into this matter. Rest assured, in half an hour at most, water and power will be back to normal. Also, the municipal disciplinary inspection team has already entered Anning Town. The first person they will summon is Zheng Daqian. Clutching the documents in my hand and listening to Qin Shu's voice on the phone, I felt a mix of emotions. I knew the moment to strike back had arrived. I looked up, my gaze extremely firm. I solemnly promised, this blade, I accept it. I promise you, justice may be late, but it will never be absent. The news of the disciplinary inspection team entering Anning Town spread faster than the water shut-off notice. Zheng Daqian was called in and questioned for 5 whole hours. When he came out, his once arrogant bureaucratic air was completely gone. Half an hour later, clear tap water flowed from the faucets at my construction site again. At night, I locked myself in my office and read through the documents Wang Weiguo gave me, carefully over and over again. Ji Bochang's crimes were far more shocking than I had imagined. Tax evasion, illegal transfer of assets, and bribery. Every single one was enough to put him in prison for life. But I knew that simply handing these documents over to the disciplinary committee wasn't enough. Ji Bochang's foundation was too deep and his network was too complex. I had to use an irrefutable method to nail him down completely, leaving him no room to struggle. So I called Suwan and said, Suwan, I need you to help me contact an absolutely reliable and sufficiently influential provincial media outlet. Suwan instantly understood my intention and asked, you want to detonate this? I looked out the window at Zheng Daqian's office building, pitch black in the night, and replied, no, I want to put him on trial. There's a producer from the provincial TV station's focus tracking program who is my senior from college. As an upright person, he hated the shady deals of the capital market the most. Their program was the highest rated in-depth investigative documentary in the province. Anyone targeted by them would end up dead or miserable. I was certain it had to be him. I pulled out a piece of paper from that thick stack of documents. It was a clear record of Ji Bochang manipulating stock prices through overseas shell companies to make illegal profits. I didn't show all my cards at once. To deal with an old fox like Ji Bochang, I had to peel away his disguise layer by layer, like an onion, to make him feel endless torment and fear. I sent this information via encrypted email to the program called Focus Tracking. I didn't leave my name and only wrote one sentence at the end of the email. This is just the beginning. 2 days later, the provincial TV station's Focus Tracking aired on time. The title of this episode was highly impactful. The 10 billion capital conspiracy. Ji Bochang's hidden wealth empire. Using detailed data and anonymous expert interviews, the program carefully unraveled the evidence I provided, presenting it clearly to millions of viewers across the province. The host questioned in an icy tone, why has our capital market become a lawless ATM for certain people? Why has our regulatory system turned a blind eye to such illegal acts? I knew Ji Bochang's doomsday had begun. That night, Huayu Capital's official website crashed from the sheer volume of traffic from angry investors. The next day, Huayu Capital stock hit the limit down right at the market open. A massive wall of sell orders sealed off all chances of escape like a waterfall. Ji Bochang's phone blew up with questions, curses, and demands to withdraw investments. People were canceling contracts with him. The commercial empire he had painstakingly built over the years, after just one short weekend, began to show signs of collapse. And the straw that broke the camel's back came from Zheng Daqian in Anning Town. On his third day of isolation, he finally couldn't handle the pressure and gave Ji Bochang up. He confessed how he conspired with Ji Bochang to embezzle my land, how many bribes he received from Ji Bochang, and how many dirty deeds he did for him. The investigation team quickly tracked down the Anning Airport Service Co., Limited, which he had opened with Ji Bochang's younger brother. Ultimately, Zheng Daqian was officially handed over to the judicial authorities. That night, work had wrapped up early. The workers had all returned to their dorms. Because I had to check a newly arrived batch of decoration materials, I stayed in the office to go over the accounts. Uncle Zhao was worried about me, so he stayed behind to keep me company. Uncle Zhao looked at the pouring rain outside and said worriedly, "Ah Qing, the weather is acting up today. I am afraid something's going to happen." I also felt inexplicably restless. Just then, the office door was violently slammed open, and a security guard on night duty rushed in, shouting in terror, "Boss Zhao, Captain Zhao, this is bad." A gang of people came with weapons, smashing everything and everyone in sight. We can't stop them. Hearing this, Uncle Zhao immediately sprang to his feet. He grabbed a shovel from the corner and cursed angrily. They actually dared to come. They're courting death. Felt my heart sink, but I quickly calmed down. Right? I told Uncle Zhao to call the police. The security guard said, trembling, "It's too late. They smashed all our phones. It seems they want to destroy the entire construction site." I immediately realized Ji Bochang was playing for keeps this time. They weren't street thugs, but professional goons. Their goal was to cause maximum damage and trigger the most serious safety incidents. Once the construction site was destroyed or someone got killed, my hotel project would be completely doomed. I made a prompt decision and said, "Uncle Zhao, take some men and guard the main gate. Don't fight them head on, just stall them." "Ah Qing, what about you?" "I am going to get help." I went outside and heard the harsh sounds of smashing and arrogant cursing coming from the hotel building. Over a dozen dark figures, armed with machetes and iron pipes, were frantically vandalizing everything. The glass curtain wall I had just installed. Suddenly, blinding headlights flashed from behind me, and an unlicensed black van sped right at me. They wanted to run me over. My mind went completely blank. In a split second, Foreman Zhang lunged over from the side and shoved me out of the way. "Boss, run." Foreman Zhang's body was sent flying like a torn sack. The van didn't stop at all and continued to accelerate until it disappeared. In the rainy night, I screamed my lungs out and stumbled over to him. "Brother Zhang." He looked at me weakly, but he was still smiling at me. "Hurry, go." My tears mixed with the rain, blurring my vision. "I can't go. If I go, Uncle Zhao, what will happen to them? If I left, Brother Zhang's blood would have been shed in vain." An unprecedented anger and murderous surged crazily from the bottom of my heart. I looked up at those thugs who were still smashing things up. My eyes were as cold as Antarctic ice. I didn't get into my own car. I turned around and rushed towards the idle bulldozer in the corner of the construction site. Boss Zhang had previously taught me how to drive this big guy. I started it up. The steel beast awakened in the rainy night, letting out a deafening roar. All the thugs were startled by this sudden roar. I drove the bulldozer slowly, yet with an irresistible coercion, and rode it over towards them. A thug screamed in terror. "Crazy, he's a madman." Everyone was scared out of their wits and fled in all directions. I didn't chase after them. Just then, over a dozen police cars with flashing red and blue lights tore through the rainy night and roared in. Qing Shou and Su Wan rushed down from the first car. They saw Boss Zhang lying in a pool of blood, saw the mess all over the ground, and also saw me sitting in the bulldozer's cab. Su Wan ran up to the bulldozer's cab, her voice trembling. "Ah Qing, are you alright? Come down quickly." I jumped down from the high cab and fell heavily into her arms. "Su Wan, he didn't manage to kill me." Su Wan held me tightly. Choking with emotion, she said, I know, it's okay now. It's all over." I knew it wasn't over. From tonight on, it would be a fight to the death between Zhibo Zhang and me. Boss Zhang was sent to the best hospital in the city. The doctor said he had lost too much blood and his fractured left leg needed immediate surgery. But his life is not in danger. I waited in the hospital corridor, the scene of Boss Zhang being sent flying by the crash constantly replaying in my mind. Su Wan took off her coat and draped it over me, while Qin Shou kept making phone calls on the side. Manager Chen Mo also found out. He used his connections in China Southern Airlines to pressure the city authorities, demanding a thorough investigation and severe punishment. This heavy blow from Jibo Zhang, although it cost me a painful price, also completely shattered all rules and tacit understandings. He pushed himself to the opposite side of everyone. The police launched an overnight operation. Those dozen or so thugs who smashed things up were soon caught at various intersections, leaving the city. The hit and unlicensed van that struck Boss Zhang was also found in an abandoned quarry. The interrogation went unusually smoothly. In the face of solid evidence and immense pressure, these desperados quickly confessed who their employer was. It was Jibo Zhang's most trusted assistant, who was also the executor of all his dirty work. When the police came knocking, that assistant chose to commit suicide to escape punishment. He thought this would let him get away with it, but he underestimated me, and he also underestimated the information Wang Weiguo gave me. I walked up to Su Wan and Qin Shou and said, Su-wan, help me contact that producer from Focus Tracking. Help me make an appointment with the leaders of the Municipal Commission for Discipline Inspection. The next morning, I made 2 copies of the complete set of documents Wang Weiguo gave me. One copy I personally delivered to the provincial TV station's Focus Tracking program. The other copy I handed to the top official of the Municipal Commission for Discipline Inspection. Immediately after, an anti-corruption storm sweeping through the province's financial and political circles kicked off. The Focus Tracking program crew spent a week producing an hour-long special that reached record-high ratings. Soon, Ji Bozhang's protective umbrella was uprooted, and he lost all his shelter. The tax department and the CSRC, the public security organs, swarmed in. All assets under Ji Bozhang were frozen, and Huayu Capital was completely sealed off. A once all-powerful capital empire collapsed in just a few short days. After the dust had settled, everyone who had helped me came. Looking in the distance at the officially open and bustling Anning International Airport, I gave no impassioned speeches, but just bowed deeply. Thank you all. Above the clouds, there is me and all of you. On the hotel's top viewing terrace. Only, it had now become the most expensive and beautiful scenery in all of Anning Town. Su-wan walked over, handed me a glass of champagne, and teased with a smile, "You look like a successful man now. Ah-ching, you know what? What you've done is more than just building a hotel. You've changed this place, and you've changed many people." I smiled, looking at the bright lights in my hotel, filled with guests. I knew that the abandoned orphan had finally found his home. Ji Bo-chang's successor was a middle-aged cadre parachuted in from the city named Zhao Fuming. As a representative of young entrepreneurs, I attended the seminar on the future development planning of Anning Town. The meeting commenced. Throughout the morning, Zhao Fuming was unsparing in his praise at the meeting. Mr. Fu's Cloud Hotel has set a great example for us. He has proven that on the land of Anning Town, as long as you have vision and courage, you can definitely grow world-class fruits. All our future planning must look up to the Cloud Hotel. We are going to turn this place into a hotbed for investment, a home where all talents are willing to stay. At the end of the meeting, Zhao Fuming shook my hand and said sincerely, "Mr. Fu, in the past, let you down, but in the future, it will need your guidance. If there's anywhere you need help, just ask anytime. We will definitely fully support you." Looking at the gleaming light in his eyes, I knew that spring had truly arrived in Anning Town. The hotel's business was booming. Besides China Southern Airlines, flight crews from other airlines also started coming out of admiration, seeking cooperation. Various business conferences and industry forums also frequently chose to be held at my hotel. Having meetings in the clouds became a new trend in the city's business circles. And the gas station I built from scratch was not forgotten either. I upgraded and renovated it, turning it into a semi-open American-style plaza. It still maintained its affordable prices and grassroots vibe, becoming the favorite late-night snack sanctuary for airport, ground staff, and local residents. Uncle Zhao was officially hired by me as the director of the hotel's engineering department, responsible for the maintenance and management of all facilities. They became the technical backbone in various positions, and each of them put on brand new uniforms, officially becoming employees of a 5-star hotel. Wang Weiguo also came to see me. As he bowed deeply to me, "Mr. Fu, thank you. It was you who gave me a second chance." I hurriedly helped him up. "Uncle Wang, you're flattering me. I only did what I should have done. It was the knife you gave me that gave me the chance to cut through the darkness." He told me that he planned to use the recovered money to set up a legal aid fund, specifically to help entrepreneurs who had been bullied by capital, just like him and me. He patted my shoulder and said with gratification, "I can't fight them anymore. But moving forward, this world ultimately belongs to you." I walked him out of the hotel, watching his back, which was no longer hunched, but standing straight again, disappear into the crowd. I knew an old era had come to an end. The hotel's operations were all in perfect order. I finally had some time for myself. The first thing I did was transfer Foreman Zhang from the general ward to the city hospital's best VIP rehabilitation center. I would cover all the expenses. When I went to see him, he was lying in the hospital bed. Seeing me come, he was so excited he almost sat up, saying, "Boss Fu, why are you here? My little injury doesn't warrant you making a trip here in person." I placed a bouquet of flowers by his bed and said, "Brother Zhang, this is no little injury. You're risking your life for me. I heard your leg is recovering well, but it will still take a long period of rehabilitation. Just rest here with peace of mind. You don't need to worry about anything. As for the expenses, it'll cover all your medical bills." This tough northern man who never complained choked up like a child at this moment and said, "Boss Fu, it was worth it for me, old Zhang." I patted him on the shoulder and said that, from now on, it's my turn to protect our home. After leaving the hospital, I received a call from Su-wan. The Cloud Hotel loan project managed by Su-wan had made a big name for itself at the head office. Not only did she not receive any punishment, but she was exceptionally promoted instead. She became the youngest branch manager in the history of their bank. She smiled on the phone and said, "Boss Fu, are you free tonight? I'd like to treat you to dinner." "Where are we eating?" "Right in the presidential suite of your Cloud Hotel." In the evening, I had the kitchen prepare the most exquisite dinner and sent it to the presidential suite on the top floor. That was the room I specifically reserved for Su-wan. From the terrace of the room, which was never open to the public, you could overlook the entire night view of the airport New City. When Su-wan saw me coming, she smiled at me and said, "The scenery here is still the best." I smiled and said, "Of course, just look at whose territory this is." We didn't talk about work, Nor did we talk about those thrilling past events. We just acted like two old friends who hadn't seen each other for a long time, drinking tea and chatting about some trivial matters. Suddenly, she looked at me very seriously and said, "Qing, do you still remember when you decided to build a hotel? I told you that once you opened, you had to give me a free presidential suite for life." Hearing this, I nodded. "Now that I've promised." Suwan smiled mockingly. "Actually, said, I was just joking back then. I thought you were crazy to open a hotel with 500,000 in the ruins that everyone was fleeing from. I didn't believe it could succeed at all. I only helped you because I didn't want to see you lose too miserably. I was even ready to bear part of the losses for you." I listened quietly without speaking. She continued, "You turned an impossible dream into reality. You are much more amazing than I imagined." She stood up and walked over to me. "So today, I want to change my request. I don't want your presidential suite anymore." I looked up at her face, which was close at hand, my heartbeat accelerating slightly. "What do you want?" She didn't answer, but slowly gave me a kiss. Then she hugged me, her voice trembling with a hint of hoarseness, and said, "Qing, I want you. What I want is you." My tears slipped down once again without warning. I smiled and nodded vigorously. I said, "Okay." That night, we talked a lot about our visions for the future. In the B of an eye, the second anniversary of Anning International Airport's opening arrived, which was also the second anniversary of Cloud Hotel's opening. Business elites, government officials, and leaders gathered together. Wearing a custom-made black suit, I held Suwan's arm and stood at the entrance of the banquet hall, welcoming every guest who arrived. Suwan had officially resigned from the bank and become the CEO of the Cloud Group. She helped me handle all the complex business affairs, allowing me to focus more on the strategic development of the group. Qin Shou also came. He was now the director of the management committee of the airport new city and the verifiable top leader of this new city. When he saw me, he smiled and said, "Boss Fu, you're the biggest god of wealth in our new city now." Chen Mo also flew in specially from Guangzhou. He was already the vice president of China Southern Airlines. As soon as he saw me, he gave me a warm hug. "Fu, the most successful investment I've made in my life was the 1 million I invested in you on that rooftop 2 years ago." Uncle Zhao and contractor Zhang were also standing behind me. One was the engineering director, and the other was the security director. After the banquet began, as the host, I stepped onto the podium. 2 years ago, when I stood here, the ground beneath my feet was in ruins. I once thought I was abandoned by the whole world. But today, as I stand here, beneath my feet is the most bustling heart of the new airport city. What I want to say is, what determines our value is never which line we are drawn outside of, but rather where we choose to redraw our own starting line. If the world abandons you, you can choose to win the world back. My speech was short, but it won the most enthusiastic applause from the audience. Before the banquet ended, I held Suwan's hand and quietly slipped out. We changed into casual clothes. Strolling in the park like two ordinary lovers, there were children laughing and playing in the park, and seniors taking walks and exercising. I saw a familiar figure, Ling Shen. He was taking his little grandson to play on the slide. He saw me too, his expression a bit awkward and uneasy. You really are a big boss now." In the past, I was the one who Please don't take it to heart. I shook my head indifferently. It's all in the past. Just then, his little grandson ran over, looking at me curiously. Li Shen quickly said, "This is the pride of our new city, the vice president of the Cloud Hotel. When you grow up, you have to be as successful as Uncle Fu." I smiled, took a piece of candy from my pocket, and handed it to the child. We continued walking forward and arrived at the old site of my former home. Now, this place has become a part of the hotel, a beautiful open-air garden. Suwan and I sat snuggled together on a bench in the garden. In the distance, a massive passenger plane was slowly landing on the runway, its lights flashing across the night sky like a meteor. Suwan suddenly asked, "Qing, have you ever regretted it?" Looking at the plane landing smoothly, looking at the myriad of lights in the distance, and looking at the lover beside me, I said softly, "I have never regretted it."